Okay, the class has been recording now. And again, welcome. Today we're going to discuss the next chapter, chapter 19, which is also a chapter related to cost. Well, as I said in the very first class, that's the first 3 chapters in this course will be all about the cost. Because knowing the cost of your knowing the cost in a manufacturing company is crucially important for the managers because they need this information to make managerial decisions. So today we will see how we use the activity-based costing, which is another costing method used to allocate the indirect cost to the product. And then we will see how activity-based costing could help the managers to make business decisions. Well, in today's class, we'll learn what is single plant rate costing allocation. What is multiple allocation basis costing allocation, and then we'll go to activity-based costing. In the last part of this class, I will introduce how to use activity-based management to make business decisions. And in the next class, we will see how activity-based management or how activity-based costing is used in service company. Also, in the next class, I will introduce another 2 management system, which are JIT, just-in-time management system, and QMS, quality management system. Well, as you have learned, the cost of the products, there are 3 parts of the cost of the product. Well, if you can recall, what are they? I said it over and over many times in the class. They are direct material, direct labor, and manufacturing overhead. Well, where manufacturing overhead can be also recognized as indirect cost. These costs must be traced to each product manufactured. The direct cost, including direct labors and direct materials, they are the costs that can be easily traced to the products. But on the other hand, manufacturing overhead, which is also called indirect cost, well, for this part, it cannot be cost effectively traced to the products. Some examples of such costs include the rent, insurance, utilities, and property tax. And also, some other examples include the depreciation, the salaries for production supervisors, and sometimes this part also includes the glue, thread, or other indirect materials that cannot be cost effectively traced to specific products. So the most accurate overhead allocation can be made only when the total overhead costs are known. So that is until the end of the accounting period. But the managers cannot wait that long for the product cost information, because knowing product cost information helps managers get a sales price for the products. Business must figure out a way to allocate these indirect costs during the accounting period. So, well, in this chapter, we will look at 3 different ways that business can allocate indirect costs. They are plant-wide rate, multiple department rate, and activity-based costing. Well, a basic assumption behind this chapter is that the costing method introduced more later is recognized a better way to allocate the cost, because the methods introduced later use more refined and more detailed information to assist us to allocate the cost to products. Well, in this chapter, we will also use the Smartest Learning Company, which is a fictitious company we previously used to illustrate the points. And let me introduce this company briefly. Again, Smartest Learning manufactures its own brand of touch learning tablet computers that are preloaded with the e-learning software. Well, since its manufacturing operations have been successful, so now the company decides to expand its production line by introducing a premium model of tablet computers, in addition to its standard model tablet computers. So in other words, this company now decides to produce 2 models of tablets. One is premium model and another one is the standard model. The premium model has several superior features, including a larger screen, faster processor, longer lasting battery, and specialized software programs. The features included in the premium model trigger some differences in the manufacturing process. For example, smaller circuitry in the hardware components requires the use of refined tools that are capable of more precise calibration. So before beginning production on a batch of tablets, a calibration setup is needed. So here we can see the setup is when the company prepares the manufacturing line to produce a different product. Well, the calibration setup for the premium tablets is performed by workers with more specialized skills. Due to these specialized skills, laborers working on the premium model are paid at a higher rate. In addition, the operating system on the premium model requires additional software components with a specialized configuration to support the superior hardware features. So, due to the specialized configuration, testing and operating system of the premium model takes longer than testing the operating system on the standard model. So as you can see, this is the production process of the Smart Touch Learning company. So the management team has compiled at the total manufacturing cost for both model is $100,000. So the challenge now is how to allocate this $100,000 in the manufacturing overhead to 2,500 tablets to the manufacturing per unit. So here we have the first method, which is single plant-wide rate, and it is regarded as the easiest way. So as you can see, again, total manufacturing overhead for the production of these two models is 100,000, and total units is 2,000 plus 500. Total is total production units is 2,500. So using a single plant-wide rate is the traditional method of allocating manufacturing overhead costs. And as I said, it's the simplest method. In this method, the company calculates the predetermined overhead allocation rate before the period begins by selecting one allocation base and using the same base to calculate overhead cost to all the units. When the company was producing only one model of tablets, direct labor cost was used as the allocation base, retaining direct labor cost as the allocation base. Let's calculate the predetermined overhead allocation rate and determine the total unit cost. the total estimated overhead costs are given, which is 100,000. To determine the total estimated direct labor cost, multiply the direct labor cost per unit times the estimated number of units. So here is the estimate. Well, for the standard model, the estimated direct labor cost per unit is $88. And for the premium model, the estimated direct labor cost is $148. Okay, this information is derived from here. Well, as you can see, we use direct labor as the allocation base. So we use the estimated direct labor cost respectively for standard model and premium model times the number of units produced. We get the total direct labor cost. And then we use the total estimated overhead cost, which is $100,000 divided by total estimated quantity of overhead allocation base, which is $250,000, which was calculated in the previous slide. $250,000 right here. So we get the predetermined overhead allocation rate, which is 40% of direct labor cost. Well, now since we have the predetermined overhead allocation rates, we use these rates times direct labor. 40% times the direct labor cost for standard model and the direct labor cost for the premium model. Well, but here please note that this direct labor cost is the actual quantity of the allocation base, or in other words, the actual cost of labor. So in this way, we get the result here. We can allocate $70,400 of overheads to a standard model, and the rest, which is $29,600, allocated to premium model. Here it is. Well, since this is the total allocation of the overheads to each different model, we have to divide it by the number of the units. For standard model, the units produced is 2000. So for standard model, divided by 2000. And similarly, for premium model, we divide this number by 500 units. So finally, we get the manufacturer overhead cost per unit. Well, in this way, we can know the total cost per unit. Direct material can be easily known. Direct labor can also be easily known. And for manufacturer overhead cost per unit, we use single plant we use single plant rates to calculate the manufacturing overhead cost per unit. So finally, we get the total unit per unit, the total cost per unit. Well, as you can see, using a single plant rate is very simple, but it may not be accurate. Using direct labor costs as the allocation base may distort the unit costs of the two models. For example, we know that the premium model requires workers with advanced skills who are paid at higher rates. The higher labor cost for the premium model resulted in more overhead cost per unit being allocated to that model. Thus, the fact that the premium model workers earn more results in the premium model using more resources that would cause an increase in overhead rates. And in other words, is there a relationship between labor costs and overhead costs? If so, then it is appropriate to use direct labor cost as the allocation base. If not, another allocation method is needed. Next, we will see another allocation method that is more accurate way to allocate this $100,000 overhead. So a modification of the overhead allocation method using a single plant-wide rate is using a multiple predetermined overhead allocation rates. This way has more than one allocation base. And in this example, it has two allocation bases. This method is more complex, but it may be more accurate than the previous one that we introduced. The allocation process is the same, except now the manufacturer overhead is accumulated in multiple cost pools and allocating using more than one allocation base. So these slides illustrates multiple department rates for manufacturing overhead costs. Smart Touch Learning Company has determined that the manufacturing processes can be separated into two main departments. In the first department, assembly department, the tablet parts are assembled, and in the second department, software department, the e-learning software is installed and tested. Management has further separated the overhead cost into two cost pools. One pool is for the overhead costs associated with the first department, assembly department, and another pool is for the software department. And after careful analysis, the company has decided that the machine usage is the primary cost driver for assembly department. Well, in other words, the company feels there is a direct relationship between the number of hours the machine are used and the amount of overhead costs incurred. Therefore, it has decided to use machine hours as the allocation base for the first department. And similarly, the company decides that direct labor cost is the primary cost driver for the software department. And the company has decided to use direct labor cost as the allocation base for that department. So now you can see the difference between this method and the first one. In this method, there are two cost pools. There are more than one cost pools, each for one department. And in each department, there is a different cost driver. The managers have traced the machine hours data for the assembly department for the next year, where we have $15,000 machine hours for standard model and 5,000 machine hours for premium model. So in total, it is 20,000 machine hours. Management also analyzed the expected overhead costs and separated them into two cost pools, one for each department. For the first department, well, in total, it is the same thing, $100,000 as the overhead, as the total overhead. or total the indirect cost, where 80,000 is allocated to the first department, and the rest of 20,000 is allocated to the second department. So for the first department, the total overhead incurred in the first department is 80,000. So this is how we allocate $80,000 to each different model. Okay, as I said, the management has decided that the machine hours is the cost driver, the primary cost driver in the first department. So we use the total estimated overhead cost divided by total estimated quantity of the overhead allocation base. 80,000 divided by $80,000 divided by 20,000 total estimated machine hours. But here, if you are careful enough, you can find a mistake on this slide. The mistake is the dollar sign, the extra dollar sign here. Because $20,000, 20,000 hours. Because here it is 20,000 hours. We do not use the dollar sign before 20,000. So here it is. Here we get the cost per machine hour is $4 per machine hour. And next, let's see. This table. We have determined that the predetermined overhead allocation rate is $4 per machine hour. So for standard model, we use $4 per machine hour times the machine hour used for standard model, which is 15,000 machine hours. We times these two values, we get $60,000 allocated to the standard model. And similarly, we use $4 per machine hour times 5,000 machine hours used on premium model. We get 20,000. $20,000 to be allocated to dollar sign. Yeah, $20,000 to be allocated to premium model. Well, we do the similar operation, similar calculation in the software department. as I said, the primary cost driver for software department is determined to be direct labor hours, direct labor cost. So we use the total estimated overhead cost, which is $20,000, to be assigned to the software department, divided by total estimated direct labor cost, which is $31,250. And similarly, we cannot have this dollar sign here. Oh, no. I'm sorry. The mistake is not here, but here, yes, it is a dollar, a value with dollar sign, because it is also a cost with the dollar sign as the unit. So we use total estimated overhead cost, which is $20,000, divided by $31,250. We get 64%. So the mistake is here. Mistake is here. Instead, we should use a dollar sign. Percentage sign. It should be 64% of direct labor cost. So we have 64% as the predetermined overhead allocation rate. We use 64% times actual quantity of allocation base used. For standard model, we use 64% times 22,000 direct labor. And similarly, for premium model, we use 64% times $9,250, which is the direct labor used on premium model. We get the result for a standard model and premium model respectively. Well, this is the sheet for the overhead allocation. This is the previous step, this division. The previous step to calculate the manufacturer overhead cost per unit. And we use this information to calculate the total cost per unit, or as the manufacturing overhead cost per unit, right here. So direct material, direct labors can be easily traced, plus the manufacturing overhead cost per unit. Well, now that we have completed an estimated cost per unit using two different methods, let's compare the result. Using a more refined allocation system with multiple allocation rates shows that the standard model costs slightly more than originally thought, whereas the premium model costs less than originally thought. The difference may not seem significant, but in today's competitive market, even a slight difference can have a big impact. Okay, next, let's see. Let's see activity-based costing, which is a more refined costing overhead allocation method. Well, this method is very similar to the multiple department rates. When the companies produce few products and production is similar across product line, managers could limit their focus to a broad business function such as production and use a single plant-wide rate or multiple department rate to allocate the manufacturing overhead to their inventory. But today's business environment involves more complex production process and personalization of products to the customer's specification, which calls for more refined costing system. Well, let's assume smart touch learning is now facing its saturation. Its two primary products require different amounts of resources. As we stated previously, the premium model of the touchscreen tablets requires a calibration setup to be performed by higher paid workers with specialized skills, and the operating system testing process takes longer than the standard model testing due to specialized configuration. And additionally, the premium model is produced in smaller batches because the quantities of the sales is lower than the standard model. Companies like Smart Touch Learning with diverse products can obtain better costing information by using activity-based costing, as well as activity-based management. Activity-based management focuses on the primary activities that the business performs so that the managers can determine the cost of the activities and then use the cost information to make decisions that will lead to improved customer satisfaction and greater profits. The cost of activities become the building block for allocating indirect cost to products and services. So here, an activity. What is an activity? Basically, in activity-based costing, an activity is a task, operation, or procedure such as quality inspection, warranty services, or shipping. The process of first determine the cost of the activity to then determine the cost of products and services is called activity-based costing. So usually we could have the quality inspections, warranty services, shipping, setup, machining, and purchasing. We can regard these things as activities, which can be a proper allocation base for each different activities. And in activity-based costing, basically, there are two steps. First, identify activities and estimate their indirect cost. Second, identify the allocation base. Third, to compute the predetermined allocation overhead rates for each activity. And lastly, we allocate indirect costs according to the calculations in step 3 to each unit. The first step in developing an activity-based costing system is to identify the activities that will be used to allocate the manufacturing overheads. Analyzing all the activities required for a product or service force managers to think about how each activity may be improved or whether it is necessary at all. So, for example, in Smartest Learning Company, let's assume that 3 activities should be focused to allocate the overheads, the total overhead costing. These 3 activities are setup, production, and testing. For each different activity, we have different allocation base. For setup, we use the number of batches. as the allocation base. For the second activity, which is production, we use direct labor hours. And lastly, for testing, we use the number of tests as the allocation base. And as you can see, for each different activities, we use the predetermined overhead allocation rates to allocate each different overhead incurred in different activities, either to standard model or to premium model. Well, this slide states the basic information of each different activities. For setup, standard model uses 40 batches to set up, and premium model production uses 20 batches. And similarly, we know the production and testing information for each different model to be produced. Direct labor hours and the number of tests. Okay, this is step 2, to identify the allocation base for each activity and estimate the total quantities of each allocation base. Well, the formula to compute the predetermined overhead allocation rate for each activity is same as the formula used for the other method. The process is repeated for each activity. The predetermined overhead allocation rate for Smart Touch Learning Company is listed in these slides. So we use to know the predetermined overhead allocation rate, we use the total estimated overhead rate incurred for each different activities divided by the total estimated quantity of the overhead allocation base. So let me use one activity as the example. For example, for setup, the managers estimate the total overhead to be $15,000. And in the previous step, the managers estimate 40 batches incurred in standard model and 20 batches incurred on premium model. So in total, it is 60 batches. So here in this formula, we use the total overhead divided by 60 batches. We get $250 per batch. So similarly, for production, we get $5.20 per direct labor hour. And for testing, we get $2 per test. Well, this is step 3. And finally, we should allocate indirect cost to the cost object. Okay. Let's see. This is the calculation results derived from step 3, from the previous step. Here, for the standard type, we use this information derived from step 3 times the estimates that we get from step 2. We turn to red ink, okay? For the red part, it is the estimates information derived from step 2, and we times them together. Similarly, we do the same thing. We do the same thing on premium model. Well, so in this way, in this step, we can get the allocated manufacturing overhead to each different activities, and sum up them together. We can know the total manufacturing cost for each different model. We simply divide the total manufacturing overhead by the number of units. Finally, we can get the total manufacturing cost per unit. So from this more refined method, we get $38.75 for standard model and $45 for premium model. All right, this is the allocation of indirect cost to cost objects. For standard model, we use same thing, direct material plus direct labor and plus manufacturing overhead cost per unit, which is the number calculated in the previous slides. These two numbers for standard model and premium model respectively, we get the total cost per unit. Well, now that we have known that the indirect cost of the standard and premium model of the touchscreen tablet computers. Let's see. How the managers in the company use the activity-based costing information to make better decisions. ABM, activity-based management, uses activity-based costing to make decisions that increase profits while meeting the customer needs. So in this section, I'm going to show you how the managers in Smart Touch Learning Company use activity-based management in making two kinds of decisions. First, pricing and product mix. Second, cost management. Smart Touch Learning now knows the ABC manufacturing cost per tablets to determine which products are the most profitable. The company recomputes each product's total manufacturing cost and the gross profit. Let's assume last year the manufacturing cost of the standard model was 300 and 500 for the cost for standard model was 300 and the selling price was 500. So compared with the last year's production, the company has predicted costs will decrease by $26.80 per unit this year using a traditional allocation method. The refinement of the costing system with ABC activity-based costing shows actual cost to be slightly higher than calculated with the traditional allocation method. But the company has still increased the gross profit margin by $23.25 per unit. If the company sells 2,000 units as expected, gross profit will increase by $46,500. With the decrease in the cost, the company could consider lowering the sales price, which cost $276.75 to maintain a 40% gross profit percentage. The decrease in sales price could lead to an increase in the sales volume. So now let's look at the premium model. Based on the market research, the company expects the premium model to sell for $600, and more accurate cost allocation using activity-based costing indicates that the premium model will be more profitable than originally thought. the increase in gross profit is a difference of $14.20. That is the difference between the gross profits. And when multiplied by the expected sales units, the gross profit could increase $7,000, almost $7,000. That is $7,100. So if you take the difference between these two numbers, multiplies by 500 expected sales. So by comparing the expected gross profits of the two products, it is clear that the standard model is more profitable than the premium model. So to maximize profits, the company should continue to sell as many of the standard model as possible. This is a product mix decision. Product mix considers overall production capacity and focuses on producing the mix of products that is most profitable, considering limited production capability. Next, let's see how the cost management decisions can be made using activity-based management. Activity-based costing can be used to reduce product cost and increase company's profitability. The ABC information is used with value engineering. Value engineering involves reevaluating activities to reduce costs while satisfying customers' needs. Value engineering requires cross-functional teams that include the different departments. For example, the marketers to identify customers' needs. The engineers is responsible to design the product that can be produced more efficiently. The production department is responsible to help improve manufacturing process, and accountants are responsible to estimate the cost. The price that a customer is willing to pay for a product or service is called the target price. Companies get sales price based on target prices. Target pricing starts with the sales price that customers are willing to pay and then subtract the company's desired profit to determine the target cost, the maximum cost to develop, produce, and deliver the product or service, and then earn the desired profit. Cost-based pricing starts with full product cost, which is the cost to develop, produce, and deliver the product or services. So this slide compares cost-based pricing with target pricing. Cost-based pricing starts with as I said, starts with the full product cost. The full product cost is added to the desired profit to determine the sales price. While target pricing just does the opposite. Target pricing starts with the sales price that customers are willing to pay and then subtracts the company's desired profit to determine the target price, which is the maximum cost to develop, produce, and deliver the product or service, and then earn the desired profit. But both, the target cost includes all costs, not just manufacturing costs, which were discussed in the first, second, and third chapters. The company's goal is to achieve the target cost. Target pricing cost considers full product cost in the analysis. Full product cost considers all production costs, including direct labor, direct material, direct labor, and allocated manufacturing overhead, plus all the non-manufacturing costs, including operating expenses like the administrative and selling expenses. Smart Learning's current full product cost, which is $513, is more than the target cost of 480 cents. And the CEO can assemble a value engineering team to identify the ways to cut cost. This team analyzes each production activity and considers how to do one or both of the following suggestions to hire managers. The first method is to cut cost, and the second suggestion should be redesign the production process to further cut the results. If the team can find a way to reduce the cost by 33 cents per unit, the difference between the target cost and the actual cost, the company will then make its desired net profit. So this is two management decisions that the higher level managers can make using activity-based management. Well, starting from next class, I will introduce how activity-based management is used in a service company. In addition, in the next class, I will introduce the JIT, just-in-time, and total quality management. So, all right. Please let me know if you have any more questions. If not, I will see you on Wednesday.
Professor.
Yes.
How you doing, sir? A quick question for the homework. If I did a lot of chapters already, but it's not showing my percentage for chapter 20 or 21.
Oh well. Don't worry because I haven't finalized the homework settings on my lab.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, don't worry.
I see for the 17, 18, 19, I see it says 100, but for the other ones it doesn't show anything.
Oh well, that's because we have more chapters to complete. So,
okay.
Yeah, so in the future, as we progress in the course, I will finalize more.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Professor.
Okay.
For the
I can hear you.
For the summary one, for the 3 chapters, I took notes during the class and I have 22 pages. Is it okay if I submit that?
Yes, I think so.
Thank you.
Yes.
Hi, Professor.
Okay, yes.
For the summary one, like, is there a requirement for typed summary?
The title?
No, the typed, like, I emailed you about if I can type it, and you say it's fine as long as I don't copy and paste.
Oh, you mean the typed or handwritten, right?
Yeah, like I typed it on like a Word document. Is there any requirement for that? Like,
well, I said both typed or handwritten are accepted, but if you want to type it, don't just copy the textbook, because I want you to have a thorough understanding of what the contents are. Don't just copy and paste.
oh, but like, there's no page length for that, or like, because I have like 17 pages right now.
For the just copy and paste, you get the 17 pages. Well, that's not bad, but I mean, my rule of thumb is that do not just be a copy machine.
Like at all, I didn't like really like copy and paste, but I just like take notes from the class. Like when you say it's like the example, like that's what I have for my Word document.
Yes, that's not bad.
Or is that okay? I like and send you like a copy of my summary one right now, like so you can see if that's okay for it. Is that okay?
Oh yeah, sure.
Okay, thank you, Professor.
Okay, no problem. All right, if you do not have any more questions, I will see you on Wednesday.
Thank you, Professor. Have a good day.
You're welcome. You too. Bye-bye.